Alright, today we're going to be installing a seatbelt harness system, aftermarket seatbelt harness system on an 2001 Ford F150. This is the rear passenger seat. Our situation is just a little bit of background. We have a special needs son. He weighs about 85 pounds and currently he's not able to ride in my truck. And so we wanted something that it's not something he's going to be riding in my truck often, but when he does, we want to have the ability for him to do so. Special needs car seats can run anywhere from $700 up to several thousands of dollars. And to try to go through government assistance to get it can take anywhere from 6 months to a year. We currently have some equipment we've been trying to get him, and we've been working on it for over 2 years. So we couldn't afford several $1,000s on our own. So what we're going to be doing is installing an aftermarket seatbelt harness that's used in off-road applications. I just want to make the caveat, the harness we're going to be using, I'll show you in a little bit, is it specifically says on their website that it's only for for off-road applications. So I don't know if technically they probably wouldn't approve of what I'm about to do, but like I said, given the cost factors to buy a special needs car seat for my son, for something, again, we're not going to use very often, I don't have any hesitancy that this should suit the application that we need. However, with that, I want to make sure it's clear. If you're going to follow this or attempt to do this on your own, I would recommend, obviously, talking to someone who has some automotive experience or about engineering and structural integrity and things like that, just to make sure that this setup would work for your particular application. So with that, here's the rear seat of the truck. So what we're going to be doing is, I found some things on the internet, but one particular video had the particular person fabricated his own brackets, and I don't have that level of expertise or knowledge, so I wanted something that I wouldn't have to weld. So what I'll show you in just a bit what I'm going to do, and then like I said, we'll just take you along the process, and I'll show you what the finished product look like, what we're going to be using for our son. So hang in there. So we're back here at the rear seat of the truck, and these holes where the bolts mount to the seat frame are 12.5 inches on center. Now I know that the bolts on the angle iron are exactly 12 inches on center. So what I'm going to have to do is kind of file out one of those holes so that it will mount between these. Okay, I have my angle iron cut. I'm still not completely finished, but I wanted to show you what I used to cut it with. This is just a metal cutting blade for my skill saw. I found like, I don't know, a pack of 8 or 10 of these at Harbor Freight for dirt cheap, and they cut really well. You can see, I mean, it cut through this literally in a matter of probably 10 seconds. So if you don't have cut tools and things like that, this works really good, and it just mounts right onto the skill saw. So I just want to show that to you throughout part of the process. Okay, so from looking at this, I think the easiest thing to do is going to be to go ahead and just, I was hoping I could just lift it up enough to slide the bracket underneath once it's cut, but it looks like the easiest thing to do is going to be to go ahead and just pull this back seat. So that's what I'm going to do next. I've got it's a 13 millimeter bolt. I've got a breaker bar, and we're going to see if we can get those bolts to loosen up with the breaker bar and extension. So let me see. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the camera and just go ahead and see if I can get these bolts out. Sorry, I have to keep turning the camera off. It's just too tight a space back here to try to mount a tripod or something like that to be able to see it. So stand by. Okay, so the seatbelt or the seat frame bolts came out quite easily with the breaker bar. Didn't take much more than probably a minute or two. They weren't in there very tight. So but Anyway, so that's what it looks like. So that's going to give me some room to work with. So let's get that angle bar and see. All right, so here's where things look. So I'm going to end up modifying my game plan. So I am going to cut it off right there. You can see where I've marked it. You can see how those holes are not quite offset. So if you could find that thick gauge, that 1/8 inch steel perforated that's got the oval or oblong holes with it, that would be perfect. They were all out of this at my local Lowe's, so I'm going to have to make this stuff work. But I would highly recommend, like you said, like as you can see, if that was a oblong hole right there down here, that it would probably line up just right, but it's not, so I'm going to have to make it that way. Okay, so here's my bracket I have cut out, and I got all the, so the holes are lined up good. Again, what I had to do is I used a rasp, round rasp file, tapered, to kind of file out that hole, make it a little bit bigger. So all my holes look like they line up. I'm going to go ahead and move the seat back into position, tighten those bolts down, and see how things look. All right, be back in just a few seconds. Okay, we're into a little bit of a problem here. As you can see, let me see if I can get my sun out of it. So as you can see, the seat belt frame, or the seat frame, because of its width, it doesn't line up with the hole. So you see, I'd have to file some more back that way. And I guess my fear is if I keep whittling back into those brackets, I don't know if I'm going to affect the structural integrity of the angle iron. So I'm going to give this a little more thought. I'm starting to think I'm going to try to file down some of that seat bracket. Maybe take a 1/2 inch off of that, or a 1/4 inch, quarter of an inch off of that to make up the difference. That way the angle bar will still maintain some of its integrity, because I'm afraid if I cut that notch out, I don't know. I'm going to give this some thought. Okay, so here's what I ended up doing. I went ahead and just notched that out on each end. So now it lines up, and I still think that there's enough on this to still be a adequate amount of structural integrity on that angle bar, since it's going to be underneath those brackets. I don't think there's going to be an issue there. Again, for what my purpose is, I think it should be fine. So we'll go ahead and I'm going to put some Loctite on there and get this anchored back on. Okay, there it is. There we go. Sorry about the lighting and the shadows. Anyways, there's the final product. There we go. Let my head block it. All right, so we've got it mounted in. That is very solid. That's not going to go anywhere. I even thought about putting a bolt down the center, but you know what? It is very solid mounted between those two. That's not going to go anywhere. So there you have it. There's the mounting bracket to start, and then once we get the seat belts come in, we'll put it all together. All right, so here's the finished product. I'm going to show you what it looks like behind the seat here, so you can take a look, see what it looks like in the back. Okay, so here is behind, as you can see. I'll see if I can maneuver this camera in to see. So what I've done is put the belts down there, got some lock nuts on there. Actually, the lock nuts didn't do too good with the one inch bolts, carriage bolts, because the nylon insert we're only tightened so far. So actually, I don't know if you can see back behind there on those other bolt, there's just a standard bolt, and I use some for these two lap belt harnesses. I just used a standard bolt with some Loctite, and they cinched up rather nicely. But this is nice and stable. And that's again that thick kind of 12 gauge angle iron. Again, if you can get the kinds that have the kind of those perforated holes that are oblong, these are all circular, but if you can get the ones that alternate the circular and oblong oval shaped, it'll probably help better in installing that over the seat mounting
brackets, because like I said, they were 12.5 inches on center, and these holes are 12 inches on center. So you're probably going to need those oblong holes. You're either going to have to drill these holes out oblong, or get the angle iron that has the oblong holes in it. But anyways, have already taken it for a test run. He's pretty stable in there, didn't seem to shift, and I think this is going to be a good thing, again, for us as a temporary measure. I should say, not something we're going to be using all the time, but on those rare occasions that we do, this is going to work out quite well. Now, another thing I should tell you as well, just so you know, is this particular seat model, these straps, as you can see, I had some old seat belt assemblies from an old wheelchair. Let me get my son out of there. And so what I had to do is I kind of had to fabricate some extensions, if you will, so the seat belts that came in that ACES system were not long enough. It made the shoulder harnesses come up too high up on the shoulders, so I had to do some extensions. So you should be aware that as it comes in the packaging, that ACES system, the belts in the back aren't long enough, so you're either going to need to get something a different one, or modify some kind of extension like I did here. But for us and our purposes, it seems to work well. So there you have it. Hope it was helpful. If it was, please like below. I'd appreciate it a lot. Thank you.